The automatic doors of Mercy Regional Medical Center slid open at exactly 9:02 on a Tuesday morning. The lobby was already busy, nurses crossing the floor with clipboards, a family sitting quietly near the window, an orderly pushing a cart down the hallway. It was a normal morning, until it wasn't. 16 men walked in, side by side, 2 columns of 8. They wore their dress blues, medals sat on their chests, combat ribbons caught the light. Their shoes were polished, their backs were straight. Not a single one of them made a sound. The lobby stopped. A nurse paused mid-step. A man at the front desk looked up from his computer and did not look back down. Someone's cup of coffee stayed in the air, halfway to their lips. The men stood in formation in the center of the lobby and waited. Calm, still, immovable. To understand why they were there, you have to go back exactly 24 hours. You have to go back to Monday. Her name was Danielle Reyes. Most people called her Danny. She was 29 years old and had grown up in Laredo, Texas, in a neighborhood where money was always tight and people worked hard for everything they had. She had joined the Marine Corps at 18 and served 2 tours, one in Afghanistan, one in East Africa, as a combat medical technician. She had treated injured soldiers in the field. She had worked under pressure that most people will never understand. She had done it well. After her honorable discharge, she enrolled in nursing school. She graduated with honors. A private clinic offered her a job that paid more than she needed. She turned it down. Instead, she took a position at Mercy Regional Medical Center because it served a low-income district, the kind of neighborhood that reminded her of the one she grew up in. She wanted to be where the work actually mattered. She was 6 weeks into the job when Monday arrived. Room 208 held a patient named Elias Cornett. He was 74 years old, a Korean War veteran who had survived things that would break most men. He had a strong voice and a quiet dignity, and he had been admitted 2 days earlier with complications from a heart condition. He was doing okay. He was expected to go home by the end of the week. Danny was reviewing his chart when she noticed the medication order. The dosage was too high. She was certain of it. She pulled up the reference, checked it twice, then checked it a third time. It was too high, not by a small amount, by enough to matter. She walked to the charge nurse and explained what she had found. The charge nurse glanced at the order, told her the attending physician had approved it, and moved on. Danny went back to her station. She sat with it for a few minutes. Then she walked to the attending physician's office. She was told, in words that were polite but firm, to follow the protocol and stay in her lane. Danny went back to her station again. She thought about Elias Cornett in room 208, a man who had survived a war and was now in a hospital bed, trusting the people around him. She opened her computer and documented everything she had observed and every conversation she had attempted. Then she called the hospital's internal patient safety hotline, exactly as her training said she should. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she was called into an administrator's office. At 4:45, she was walked out of the building. Her badge was taken at the door. The termination letter cited insubordination and a failure to work within the chain of command. At 9 o'clock that evening, Elias Cornett was moved to the intensive care unit. Danny drove home without turning on the radio. She did not call a lawyer. She did not post anything online. She called Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Webb because he was the person she called when she did not know what else to do. Webb had served with her overseas. He had seen her work in conditions where there was no room for error, and he had watched her make the right call every single time, even when it was hard. He listened to her now without interrupting. When she finished, he asked 3 questions. Simple, direct questions. Then he said he would call her back. He hung up and sent one message to the men he had served with, scattered now across 6 different states. One of ours got burned for doing the right thing. We show up tomorrow. Dress blues. 16 men responded within the hour. 16 men booked the next available flights, got in their cars and drove through the night, and called their employers to say they would not be in. None of them asked Webb for more details. They did not need more details. They already had everything they needed to know. She was one of theirs. The man behind the reception desk at Mercy Regional was still staring when Gunnery Sergeant Webb stepped forward from the formation. He was a large man with calm eyes and a voice that did not need to be raised to fill a room. He placed both hands on the desk and said, "We are here on behalf of Corporal Danielle Reyes, United States Marine Corps, retired. We would like to speak to whoever made the decision to terminate her employment." Nobody in the lobby moved for a long moment. A janitor stood with a mop in both hands, watching. A woman who had been crying quietly near the window had stopped crying entirely. 3 nurses stood together in the hallway and did not walk away. Someone near the back of the lobby lifted a phone and started recording. The reception desk called upstairs. The charge nurse came down first, then the chief nursing officer, then the chief medical officer. Finally, nearly 40 minutes later, the president of the hospital stepped out of the elevator and crossed the lobby floor toward the 16 men in dress blues. None of the Marines had moved. What followed was 2 hours that the staff of Mercy Regional would talk about for a long time afterward. The Marines did not shout. They did not make speeches. Webb placed a single folder on the reception desk and opened it. Inside were copies of everything: Danny's documented observations, the medication order, the notes from her conversations with the charge nurse and the physician, and Elias Cornett's ICU admission chart from the night before. Webb walked through it page by page. He was steady and precise, the way men are when they have spent years in situations where emotion is a luxury and clarity is everything. He finished by looking directly at the hospital president and saying, "She did everything right, and you fired her for it." By noon, the video from the lobby had been viewed over 200,000 times. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the State Department of Health had received formal complaints from 3 separate sources: 2 nurses still working inside the hospital who had been afraid to say anything, and Elias Cornett's daughter, who had driven to the hospital the moment she found out what had happened the night before. By the time the afternoon light was starting to shift outside the lobby windows, the attending physician and the charge nurse had both been placed on administrative leave, pending a formal review. The hospital president called Danny at 4:30, almost exactly 24 hours after she had been walked out the door. The call lasted 11 minutes. She was offered her job back, with full pay for the days she had been away, and a written apology on official letterhead. She was also offered a seat on a patient safety review committee that the hospital announced it would be forming immediately. Danny sat in her kitchen with the phone in her hand after the call ended. She looked at the wall for a little while, then she called Marcus Webb. "What do you think?" she asked him. There was a pause on the other end. Then Webb said, "I think you already know the answer. You didn't do any of this to win, Danny. You did it because that old man needed somebody to stand up for him." She accepted the offer. The following Monday morning, Danny Reyes walked back through the automatic doors of Mercy Regional Medical Center. Her badge was clipped to her scrubs. Her stethoscope was around her neck. The lobby looked exactly the same as it always had. The 16 Marines were not there. They had gone back to their families and their jobs in 6 different states. There were no cameras this time, no crowd, no formation. Just a woman walking back into a building where she had work to do. She found her locker in the break room and opened it. A folded piece of paper was taped to the inside of the door. She recognized the handwriting immediately. "Semper Fi, Corporal. Now go take care of your patients." She folded it once and put it in her pocket. Then she walked down the hallway toward the patient rooms. In room 114, Elias Cornett was sitting up in bed, eating breakfast. He was doing better. He had the kind of face that had been through a great deal, and had not softened because of it, only deepened. He looked up when Danny appeared in the doorway. His eyes moved to her name badge. "You're the one they fired," he said. Danny stepped inside the room and checked his chart. She said. The old man looked at her for a moment. Then he nodded slowly, the way people do when something has been set right in the world. "Good," he said. And he went back to his eggs.